Welcome to Talksicology, brought to you by Recovery Unplugged, the place where we talk about all things substance abuse, recovery, and mental health, with guests offering varying perspectives and viewpoints. Hosts Joseph Gordo and Jason Cabello share about their addiction and recovery and other serious subject matter through lighthearted yet candid conversation. I would like to welcome you and thank you so much, Brian, for coming on. Today's guest, Brian Anderson. I've been looking forward to this one for quite some time. This is I've been a fan for decades and decades, and have just always enjoyed your skateboarding, and then reading just your interviews. I remember seeing some artwork that you've done, and we recently had the chance to meet in person in Miami a few months back, and it's just awesome how these things come together. So welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you, Jason. It's great to be here, and it was nice to read up a little bit again about everything that you all have going on. So I'm really happy to be here. Thanks.
Cool, man. So I know you travel a lot. You're super busy, and I really do appreciate you making the time, because it seems like every time I talk to you, every time I text you, just like, hey, yeah, heading to Brazil for a little while, heading here, heading there. So is it kind of a constant lifestyle that you're kind of moving around a lot?
It was my whole life of touring and then stopping in the city I would live in and still skate a little bit. And then we can talk about all those different time periods, but I'm kind of making it quick. And once COVID happened, I was lucky to have a group of like 4 close friends around New Jersey and New York. And then once the world kind of opened back up to flying again,
right.
I was just kind of making note of that the other day. I was just remarking to myself, like, oh yeah, I kind of, once we were allowed, and I've been with Nike a long time, they sent me on a trip to Barcelona to work on a shoot for a Nike Polaroid dunk. And I think that was in a February or March or something, maybe of 2022. I don't know. I'm not really thinking the exact numbers. Anyhow, it must have been 2022. Yeah. And then I started traveling again and doing a lot of things that Nike, will sponsor or be a part of. And not just Nike, but yeah. So to answer your question, I've always traveled a lot. And then during COVID, as a lot of us kind of stayed put, there was that. And then once, again, flying became a little more comfortable for corporate places to book events and sponsor things, then I started going back to events.
That's awesome. So your sponsors are Anti-Hero, Nike. Who else do you ride for?
Spitfire Wheels, Ace Trucks, and Powell Swiss Bones Bearings, Jessup Grip Tape. And I'm friends with a lot of people that have been at Supreme a long time. They've always been very generous to me.
Right.
And Labor Skate Shop in New York, that's my skate shop.
Have you
and
tried
NJ Skate Shop too.
And which one?
And NJ too. Hey, New Jersey.
Shout out to the shops. Yeah, I currently live in Austin, Texas, and the No Comply Skate Shop is just such an amazing place, man. And growing up, you started skating in the late 80s, so you know how important skate shops are to like just have a place to go. And I just remember going into... This is before I actually started skating, because I grew up in North Miami Beach, Florida, not too far from where we met, probably like a 15-minute drive north from where we met at the Skatebird place in Miami. And I would go stay with my dad, who lived in California at the time. And I remember just walking past, I think it might have been Cheapskates or something like that, one of the bigger shops, and just walking past and just seeing all the colors and just being so drawn to it, even before I had any urge to like ride a skateboard. And then once I did, and it all just came together. Like I still love going to skate shops and just looking around. But No Comply in Austin, Texas is probably one of the better skate shops that I've seen, and they do a great job of I've said it before, that it feels like a community center almost, because they have a coffee shop in there, the homies that work there. It's always cool to drop in. So you grew up in Connecticut?
Yes, a town called Groton, which had a Navy base up the river, and the Thames River leads out into Long Island Sound. So it's an old whaling environment, I think. New London, thus the name of the Thames River, River Thames, New London.
Okay.
So Groton, New London. Yeah, I grew up southeastern Connecticut.
Is that anywhere near Mystic?
Yes, Mystic is half Groton, half Stonington.
Oh, okay. Mystic is, man.
Mystic is property of half Groton, half Stonington, I think technically. I don't know.
What a beautiful place. I had been there once in my 20s, and I just like fell in love there. And I always thought like, man, if I ever became like an artist and needed an artist studio, like that little town area there would be perfect for that. Just it just spoke to me.
Yeah, it was a pretty charming, kind of magical place to grow up next to, I would say, because living in Groton, you very much felt like you didn't live in Mystic all the way, you know?
Right.
But that's cool. It was a great way to grow up for me. I could go on and on about that. Really balanced high school. I'm very lucky. And with the Navy base, I had friends from all over America and sometimes the world.
A little bit more of sort of a international feel than the surrounding areas.
Yes. Not that there was a ton of affluence near us. A lot of the old Connecticut money is more west.
Right.
Western. Not always. I mean, there's plenty of wealth in Mystic and Stonington. That's for sure.
Yeah, I was talking to some friends a while ago, and like growing up in Miami, very international city. And I think that I benefited from that a lot, just because just growing up in elementary school, you know, we had a lot of people from Israel, a lot of people from like South America,
Dominican.
A lot of Dominican, a lot of people from Haiti, a lot of just a complete melting pot. And I don't think a lot of places have that. And I didn't realize how good I had that until a few years ago. Like, just, I don't know, like where I find people, if they hear somebody talking with an accent, like not understanding, I think just because I had so many different cultures in my school alone that I just learned to pick up on different accents and be able to like just little things like that. I think made it cool and much more sensitive to cultural subjects, and just learning that, you know, this is a culture. This is how these people were brought up. This is how I was brought up. And it's cool that, like, you know, seeing some of it. I was one of because it was a very Jewish neighborhood that I grew up in. And I remember when I was, you know, getting towards probably when I was like 9 or 10, I remember some of my friends like talking about like their older siblings' bar mitzvahs. And I went home and I'm like, Mom, I heard about this bar mitzvah thing. How come you didn't tell me about this before? And I have the plan for my, like, what I want my bar mitzvah theme to be like. And she was like, no, we're not Jewish. Like, you don't get one of those. And I was crushed. Absolutely crushed. So at what age did you start skateboarding?
Probably 10 years old.
Okay. So yeah, that's
1986. I was born in 76. And I went to the roller skating rink and rode a big wheel. I also went sledding in the winter, and I remember standing up. I'm not saying this like, yeah, I did this, I did that. Right. I felt like I was coming across as firing off my masculine list of stuff. No, but I remember standing on a sled. We had like the sleds with the runners, the iron or metal runners, and the wood on top. When I say that I started skating at 10, I was already rolling around on roller skates at the roller skating rink and knee boarding probably. And my neighbor had a banana board, I always say, and she'd let me borrow it. So, and then I had a Veriflex probably around when I was 10, 11, I think.
Which like Veriflex?
A cheap complete. Yeah, a cheap complete from Benny's.
Do you remember which Veriflex it was?
I do. It's called Veriflex Wired. It was orange and it had barbed wire across the middle.
That's sick. I had the Ramp Rat. Veriflex Ramp Rat was my first cool. cheap board, and it was. I always see them on or I look for them on eBay, and I'm always like, I just need one of those. But it was such. I just, you know, growing up when you didn't have, we obviously didn't have the internet or anything like that. And I like if I had a skateboard, even later on, I would just study the graphic so much and just look at it. And like I couldn't draw very well, but I would love to find some old notebooks at my mom's with me trying to draw the Veriflex ramp rat or the Nuke Baby. The Nuke Baby, do you remember that
Oh,
one?
right.
There was a lot of I know like Danny Way did a reissue of one. I think Jim Greco did another graphic take off of Nuke Baby, but that was like the Nash Nuke Baby was another one of the boards that you could get at like Kmart or Toys R Us that
There you go.
a lot of people's first board. So what was
very slow boards for those people who are familiar.
Yeah,
very slow moving, cheap bearings, but hey, you got to start doing the motion of skating, right?
Right. What was your first real board, as we say?
I bought a guitar for my birthday. Well, my parents got me a guitar. I asked for one. It was probably a really cheap electric, not a name brand.
Right.
And I sold it in the newspaper within a week because I realized I wanted to skateboard more. And trying to be a good kid in the neighborhood at the little convenience store, candy shop, I left my board outside and it got stolen. So I had a Steve Stedham and Venture Trucks and OJ Wheels, Steve Stedham Sure Grip Incorporated.
Wow.
But yeah, that got stolen within days of getting it. I'm pretty sure, like 4 or 5 days in my memory. And then I was back to the Veriflex. Ha ha ha! But glad I saved that. And I had a neighbor who didn't have any siblings right next door, and he had a Vision board, like a Vision shredder, and he also had a nice BMX bike. So, I kind of held my own with my cheap BMX bike from Kmart. Well, ours was Benny's, as I said. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that was the relationship. And then eventually a friend of mine, I met a couple more people in the town of Groton, my friend Kevin, and that was the other beauty of Navy housing. There's lots of, you could bump in and probably meet someone who'd be kind of your tribe,
Right.
And then somebody I bought one of my friend's old boards for a couple of dollars, and yeah, slowly pieced it back together. Maybe I got trucks for the next holiday, Christmas or something.
And how long would you say until you noticed progression in your skating to where you were starting to feel comfortable?
Well, we had our own little ramps, and I lived on a dead end street in the Navy housing. We had some ramps in a park, and so that's what we did. We skated jump ramps and we put them up to a wall at tennis courts. And there was a couple of guys in our town that were really good, and they had a little zine. And I got to see the zine through my sister's high school. She probably got it, and maybe there was one at the bicycle shop. And then my friend got a Thrasher who I skated with, and we built little rail slide bars. And there was a ditch close to our house, so we could learn to pump around in this small ditch. It's called the Rat Hole.
Right.
And that was right on the river. And so within a couple of years, we must have all noticed we were starting to try whatever we felt like we were capable of off the launch ramps. And once you started doing these like judo airs and these different tweaks, Japan airs and melancholies, and then somebody had a VHS tape. We found the 8th Street video. VHS player, VCR. I didn't have one at my house. And then, within a couple of years, we were like getting pretty good, and we just kept skating those launch ramps. I mean, all my friends in the Navy housing, and my friends that were in the Navy housing also. So,
was the 8th Street video the first video that you had seen?
I think I might have seen there was a Red Hot Chili Peppers and a Swatch sponsored ramp. I don't know if that was a spine ramp, but I remember seeing that. It was like a Vision.
So like the Swatch Impact Tour, maybe the Swatch Impact Tour. I
don't know. It was like my friend had a VCR, Kevin, and I don't know if he had any skate videos yet. He might have had Sick Boys, but so I remember all from my memory is like seeing maybe Sick Boys part of it, and my friend Jason had like actual videos, like a Going video, and he had Santa Cruz videos. So it took me a moment to get to meet those people where they invited you into their house to where you could watch a skate video at their house, you know?
Right.
So it took a second for Donnie Barley, who people know, pro skater, you know,
Yeah.
in skateboarding. Donnie was friends with my friend Jason. And again, yeah, we lived in a different part of town, me and my little crew of 2 guys. And then once we were friendly enough where they let us into Jason's house, we could then watch a couple skate videos in that house and then skate his mini ramp with knee pads. And that, I'm just recalling it as I'm telling you. It just slowly kept moving. You kept build more skill every season. You built some more, you learned some more tricks, you know?
Right. Do you have a memory of having the first either video or pro or something like that that you really just kind of spoke to you a little bit more than the rest did? Like something that you like a certain style or a certain company or anything like that?
This sounds basic for people from my time, for folks from my time, but it's the first person I thought of, and I didn't get obsessed, but Matt Hensley.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I already was aware of people in Thrasher, but when I saw Shackle Me Not, I'm not trying to be like, I'm so cool. I didn't even want the chain wallet, but I didn't. It wasn't his style. It was really like, he might even not really fully rock the chain wallet until Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, I
But
think it was a little bit later with the chain
yeah,
wallet when he started getting a little bit more like ska looking.
yeah. But just seeing this guy ollie to Smith stall on wooden benches and nose picks. I don't know how much of your audience skate and doesn't skate, but I'm talking like everybody knows what I'm saying. But just seeing the way this guy rode a board reminded me of like myself and my friends.
Right.
And then we also loved Ron Allen. Uh, yeah, lots of people in that 8th Street video. And again, I wasn't fully schooled on all the Bones Brigade stuff. So that's why for me it was more 8th Street.
Yeah.
And then somebody had Future Primitive, or somebody acquired like the Bones Brigade video show. And then later, like, we were skateboarding actively when Ban This came out. I remember we were like halfway, we're like, this sucks, like it's so corny. But Ban This was also incredible. You had Ray Barbie, and besides the crew of like Mariano and Rudy and
That was just,
you
yeah,
got exposed to
seeing
Ray
that
Barbie. This guy was skating in jeans. I remember that specifically.
in the
How
Vision
cool. I was like,
streetwears, and yeah,
yeah.
his flat ground is still like I aspire to just, if I could do no complies or anything like Ray Barbie did, I would be happy.
Yeah, man. It's a beautiful human.
So then, when did it start? Because a lot of guys in our generation, I'm a couple years older than you, but it just seems like a common thread that skateboarding got you to go be a little bit more adventurous, as far people that I had talked to at least. Have you venture out a little bit further? Like, maybe every weekend you'd hear about a spot that's a little bit further out. Or did you have access to going to the city, to going to New York or anything like that when you were younger?
I did. My friend Steve Mace in our hometown of Groton again. He had a van and did really good in school, but didn't care. Necessarily classic kind of dude. Great, very intelligent, and really good on a skateboard. So there's a few people that I say him because they had the driver's license before I did. So when I was 14 and 15, I met a few people like him. They would bring me to Providence, Rhode Island. There was an indoor place called the Skate Hut, and it was pretty new to see, like, punk rock. It smelled like stale beer.
Nice.
Fred Smith and all these guys had nicknames, Metal Man and stuff, and it was awesome. I was like, I was a little freaked out, but I was actually quite literally on the what you'd call the wrong side of the tracks. Or it was next to the train tracks. It was sketchy. So Providence was a great place to be able to go skate once somebody had their license in our crew, driver's license. I got my license at 16 quickly, but we would also take the commuter train. We would leave Groton, New London, sometimes drive to Western Connecticut, and then take the metro into Manhattan to skate the Brooklyn Banks or I mean everything, but I say Brooklyn Banks because that was our destination, and then also Midtown and stuff like that. So my friends and I, when we were 15, we were probably going to New York City. That's pretty cool to think about. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. And to like just explore the city like not many other people do. You know, most people when they would go to the city at those age are going to museums or going to that. You're like skating like 50 blocks from spot to spot and really just immersing yourself in it. And like
Yeah.
getting like street skating is just like one of those things you can't really explain it to somebody who hasn't lived it. But when you go to a city, like you are going in and out of like every neighborhood of every area. And I think that's why a lot of street skaters, people growing up street skating, tend to get into like visual arts or filmmaking or something because you see life through a complete different lens.
It's true. You know, waiting on the subway platform is very moody, but I just responded instantly to you talking about, creative and film and stuff like that. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, I think
it's also very traumatic. It's very real, you know.
It
You
is.
see in New York City, especially, well, every city, but New York's intense. It's like, as we all know, it's everyone. So it's beautiful and
Yeah.
painful. Yeah.
Yeah, getting, you know, so Miami, growing up there, it is like the difference between North Miami and South Miami are complete different worlds, right? And, you know, every city has that where it's just somewhere completely different. But when we used to take the bus around downtown Miami, like the crew that I grew up skating with or ended up meeting when I was, you know, in my teenage years, we would skate around downtown Miami a lot. And it was, you know, there's some rough areas out there, but it's like going through on a skateboard. It's not like you have this invincibility shield, but it's kind of just like a lot of people aren't going to mess with you. You're just kids kind of rolling through, you know, you usually have some kids from the city who are pretty street smart, who, you know where to go and things like that. So I think that a lot of people who grew up like that have get a little bit more adventurous, a little bit more, you know, when you're in an area that you need to kind of keep your eyes out for, and you get taught this at a young age. And it's, I think it was some important life lessons that I learned growing up.
Absolutely.
But before, I mean, I could talk to you for probably another couple hours on, you know, late 80s, early 90s skateboarding, but we have to talk about Ben Schroeder for one moment, just because I remember seeing your Thrasher, or I think it was a Thrasher or Transworld, the skater's favorite skater, and you had mentioned Ben Schroeder. I assume just because you guys have kind of the same stature, both big dudes, and both, you know, kind of have a similar charge at style to skating. But do you remember at all the show on Nickelodeon called Skate TV?
Yes.
Ben Schroeder is on there, and this was aired in maybe 1990 on Nickelodeon, and Ben Schroeder's on there talking about like Charles Bukowski on something that's going over the airways on a children's network at like 10 a.m. on a Saturday.
You read it all in your free time?
I read a lot.
Do you really? What kind of books?
Charles Bukowski, if you ever heard of him, he's one of my favorite authors.
He's a grehave author.
Somerset Maugham is, if you ever heard, I'm sure you have, but
yeah,
he's a really detailed author, so I really like him too.
Always loved that.
Wow, I can't believe that. I mean, I don't know if I saw that. Let's start over.
I'll send you a clip from it. It's kind of surreal to think about. Like this was like, and I'm sure it was like bookended by like Cheerios commercials or like Fruit Loops commercials, and then he's on there talking about like Steinbeck and Charles Bukowski. It was just poetry. It was fucking amazing.
That's great.
So we are not a skateboarding podcast here. I know it sounds like we are, but we talk a lot about, you know, alcoholism, things like that on here, and how people found their way out. So when did you start sort of partying? When did it start? So when did you start sort of partying? You know, I know in the culture that we grew up in, it wasn't a big deal to, you know, smoke weed, to drink, to do these kinds of things.
Well, around 15, I started having beers on the weekends with my friends in high school, maybe 14 a little bit. And I was working in dishwashing. So we would, be able to sneak a couple beers at the end of the night. And, I remember I got arrested for smoking weed or being in a car with weed, but we had smoked weed that night.
Mhm.
So, it went in the police report in the newspaper. So when I was in high school, everyone found out the day after I got arrested.
Oh, you made
So
the
that was
paper for
Yeah, I was in the newspaper. Yeah, for possession of alcohol by a minor, possession of drug paraphernalia, and possession of marijuana. And I got a year probation with a 60-day suspended sentence. If I messed up, I could have to go to juvenile, juvie for 2 months.
right.
So no, so but I skated. I was really active, and we could tell that's a really long story. During the 1 year probation, I went through a spot check with my friends who were on the track team. And we were coming home from a hockey game, and I got possession of alcohol by a minor. So my probation officer was like, 3 strikes, you're out, pal. You don't want to graduate. And I stopped. I stopped drinking. I stopped being around people smoking weed. I stopped smoking weed. I even quit cigarettes. So wow, as I'm recalling this, that was a little practice. Ha ha ha. But no, I mean, I say that background because I didn't drink in the mornings for, until I was older.
Mhm.
We would all say hair of the dog. So I drank a lot with my friends. Yeah, a lot of beers, and we always skated though. And there was times where when skateboarding became my career, I was like, I should quit smoking cigarettes. This is crazy. I'm a sponsored professional skateboarder. This is insane. I never, I didn't set out to be. It was a possibility, but so anyhow, but once you start touring to that part of life, I jokingly say like your doctor is the 7-Eleven, and I'm physically in pain. Now I'm going into sort of the reasons why it escalated over the years. A lot of times I would drink because I would be bruised up on tour, and I'd want to do another show. I'm talking like I'm in a band, but
Right.
you have to do a demo the next day for the kids on tour, and I wanted to. I liked making something out of nothing in a parking lot. That's another angle
Yeah.
of what it's like to go on a skateboard tour in the late 90s. But yeah, so being able to drink and hang with the boys is what you would say mostly then. If you could do that without throwing up and getting everyone popped or ruining the party, yeah, of course, we all know in so many different cultures that's kind of like a badge.
Yeah.
And then into my 30s is when I started, like in my 20s too, but early 20s, but being a closeted gay man. Never thought I would say that out loud. There's those are other reasons why my drinking escalated, from the depression and confusion of internalizing all that.
Right.
And then until like 25, starting to tell some family members, and maybe after my father passed away. My uncle also struggled with alcoholism. My father was kind of never too bad,
Yeah.
too much to where him and my mother had to have big talks about it necessarily. So I say a lot of those things, of course, so this can be genetic and never something that I blame on my genes. But when you look back and realize that the men and women before you and your family may have also struggled with
There's usually
substance and alcohol. Yeah.
Usually something there.
Yeah.
So going back to when you're talking about, being closeted, I couldn't imagine like being with the people who you consider your best friends in the world, right? And then knowing like a fundamental part of who I am can't be brought to the surface here. So I'd imagine a lot of the drinking and whatever other substances were around at that point took some sort of alleviated that pressure or filled a gap, or how would you explain it?
Yeah, alleviated pressure. and gave me the ability to block out, me thinking that forever I would never share that with anyone. I mean, there's so much to that, of course, besides the drinking. I'll go right back to the drinking. But yeah, my brain is, and my heart is going like, this is really unique. I've gotten to the point in life now where I knew I didn't want to be with a woman. So, I'm like figuring out this bizarre puzzle and trying to enjoy myself. Also, which I didn't really do. I didn't like really secretly go to any gay bars. I was terrified to be caught or seen when I was younger. And
right.
There's a few times, but also I liked the way drinking made me feel. I've never said this before, but I guess it's as an artist, I liked being exposed, not because alcohol opened my ear, but I liked feeling this fluidity, right, while interpreting music and nature. So there's also an element of like, I enjoy music. Not just saying this because of some of the folks, who you all work with. But so, yeah, I also enjoyed the euphoric feeling. It wasn't all for the pain. Right.
Right.
And I did like a little bit of, as I mentioned, the liquid stretch, you call it, it was mixed with a little liquid courage. I liked, and I like to drink and skate.
Yeah.
So, there's that too. I'm a really active guy. When I was a kid, my mom, I'm the youngest of 14, so she's like, when you went to kindergarten, I thought you were going to be climbing all over the tables. You were climbing all over the house. You were full. So I'm a very, very energetic guy. That's
right.
Another reason why I'm also very empathetic. I'm really sensitive. I'm Norwegian. I'm really like, I'm 6'4". I can sleep anywhere. I like to think, I can rough and tumble. But yeah, so there's all those elements to who I am as a person, right? And so in the daytime, when I'm not drunk and I'm skateboarding and I'm filming, it is the most satisfying, fun thing because I'm this active fellow, right? Like, I love it. I'm again 6'4". I have a fit, shape. I'm kind of built like a dancer or a trapeze artist. I realized later in life, I'm like this person. I could have like thrown people around on stage if I worked in theater,
Right.
I'm again, I have long arms and all this stuff. So I'm really active, and I really love the skateboarding or rewarding part of rolling away from a trick, the dopamine that you get, and so, but yeah, at the end of the day, you're back in the van. If you're talking about the tour environment, and you're with your friends and you're rolling dice in a shoebox and you're having some blunts and some beer until you get to the next hotel and crash out and wake up. And, so I was a little all over the place, but I was also in the beginning very lucky to go on tour with Ed Templeton, and he's vegan. And so we were also stopping at health food stores in the middle of America and making these little sandwiches. And I used to be vegetarian. So if you want to talk about everybody being different in their recovery, that's another aspect. I was very fortunate to be an alcoholic. Like, let's be real, the way I drank led to me being a full-blown alcoholic. Sorry to chuckle right there.
Right.
Yeah, I smoked cigarettes. That active guy that I described, I was very lucky to probably defeat a lot of poisoning because I was always active through all that, and like, give me more water. I want a miso soup, vitamins. And that's not trying to be cute, but that's the Norwegian, right? Like, I'm like, there's a primal part of me.
Always high energy.
Right there. Yeah. So
conquering things.
Yeah, not to be dramatic, but you're not. I'm not saying that was a dramatic word. Well, you're right there. Conquering skateboarding.
Yeah, that's like a
you're conquering skate spots and then battling mentally with a possible security guard you can see through the window that's on their way out. So I just kind of went off right there. Pardon me.
No, that's great, man. And I could imagine that Ed was a huge influence on you, sort of becoming centered with who you are, just because he was such an open-minded guy. very forward thinking at a time where, you know, at least in the skateboarding community, like, I don't know if homophobia is the correct word, but it was just, you know, it was a different time. People threw around different words. It wasn't socially acceptable to, you know, say like, hey, I support, you know, the queer community as Ed Templeton did in the early 90s, you know, like using those 411 songs in his skate videos that talked about it, and just in interviews, just being very open about it. So that must have been a refreshing person to ride for. So Brian rode for Ed Templeton's skate company called Toy Machine in the early 90s. And it was a little bit different. It was a little bit artsier than most other companies. It was just took a different view. Ed was vegan early, like, you know, Ed's probably been vegan since he was in high school, which he's what, like 54, 55 at this point. So very forward thinking person. He must have been you must have looked up to him quite a bit when you had got on that team.
I did, because I looked up to his skateboarding when I was growing up. I actually liked his style, the way the tricks that he chose, or the tricks that he learned and felt fun for him. So yeah, I loved his style on his skateboard when I was 14, 15, 16.
He was one of the first people that I think I tried to emulate on a skateboard, but you know, I'm 5'6", didn't have the same lankiness as him, but and then when I was going to California to stay with my dad, he lived in Huntington Beach at the time. So I'd go from South Florida to Huntington Beach for the summer and get to see Ed around. I got to see Mark Gonzalez skate a little bit. When this is so I'm not one of those big, no regrets kind of guys, but one of my biggest regrets, I was in this skate shop that was on Beach Boulevard in Huntington Beach called Bud's Surf and Skate. This was probably 1989, and I'm looking at the boards as I still do, just like looking at the boards. Mark Gonzalez comes in the shop to like get bolts or something like that, and I was so transfixed on looking at the stuff. He comes up and he's like, "Oh, you looking for a board?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I look over and it's fucking Gons, right? And he is like, "Oh, if you come outside, I got some boards that I'm selling, hand painted Mark Gonzalez boards that he sold for $20." I ran. My dad lived like right down the street. I was like, "Just please, just hold on. I'll be right back. I'll be right back." And I don't think I've ever moved so fast in my life. I ran, and like, you know, my dad wasn't easy to give up $20, but I don't know. I convinced him in a hurry. Like that addict mentality came early on that part. So I went and I bought a hand painted Gons board, and, you know, skated the shit out of it and then just left it somewhere. And that thing, what a wall hanger that would be, even used at this point. And then I get to see some of because I guess, you know, he would obviously get a bunch of boards and paint them. So I would see some of the things from the same series with the cities and like the elephant looking guy. But yeah, that was one of those things. One of my deepest regrets is not saving that board, even used, but.
Yeah, would have been even more pretty used.
Right. But yeah, Ed Templeton, just complete forward thinking at that time, and bringing on, I know you're good friends with Alyssa Steamer, who's a fellow Floridian. I wouldn't say we've crossed paths a couple of times. We used to skate this place called Brotherhood Skate Park, which was in Fort Myers. That was like that was her crew that was out there. So I got to see a lot of her kind of coming up in those days, the early Tampa days. And you guys were teammates at that point. Is that when you all became friends?
Yes, Alyssa Steamer and I were flown to San Diego and landed the same afternoon. That must have been 1990. I don't know. When was Welcome to Hell? When Welcome to Hell, the video that we made, come out? 1996? Yeah. 96. Pardon me, there's just been so much discussion about that video too. How dare my mind forget? No. So I met Alyssa, and we stayed in San Diego and made the video called Welcome to Hell, and then went on a US tour. And we've remained friends ever since. A couple gaps, but no big separations or disagreements. Yeah, no fights. We've always been very close.
Alyssa's also sober at this point, correct?
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, she has been sober like I want to say like 15 years now, maybe more. So
yeah, I remember seeing her because I'd go to all the early demos and everything in the first few Tampa Pro contests. So I was going out to all of those and seeing her just destroy the park, you know, and doing stuff back then super technical, like nollie nose slides on ledges, which back then was pretty hefty. And I remember me and my friends, we were seeing, I think it was a girl chocolate demo. I think that was the one. And their crew had showed up from that area. And it was like, because I had seen them skate before, but then to see them skate when the big pros were around, because like Lance Mountain was there, Guy Mariano was there. He had just his Bob Shirt interview. They just showed him skating vert with Lance Mountain, and that was at that demo. And just seeing how much it brought up other people to skate at like a new level. I think that was Tampa bred some incredible skateboarders. You know, that park is just a fixture in skateboarding in Florida history.
Absolutely.
So at what point did you think you started going a little bit, like maybe you were drinking a little bit too much? I think it might have been in the Girl Anti-Hero Tour video. It might have been when y'all are camping. There's a clip of you and look, you're like taking Advil and drinking it with whiskey, and you're just like, I'm a cliche. Like I remember, I've always remembered that. And it just seemed like, and especially after I got clean, I remember rewatching that and being like, there's a guy who's like, you know, man, this isn't great. This isn't glamorous.
Yeah. So what about that time?
I'm just trying to say, like, what was the point where you started thinking, like, even before you took any action on it, just that this isn't sustainable?
Let's see. I fell a couple times drinking and skating. You know, and remember everything before both of them. But as my friend said, you didn't have your cat-like skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not me, the alcoholic, trying to cover it up. Like, I was fine.
Right.
But I had felt like pains in my lower back. Living in San Francisco, a lot of my friends were bartenders. Again, with the thing, I would really, truly go to the YMCA gym the next day in Embarcadero after drinking and like partying and smoking cigarettes. At 3 in the afternoon, I'd be like, must work some of this out. And, but yeah, so I was aware for decades that I drank too much. And then in San Francisco, I'm not blaming that town, but it's also a place where the bars close at 2. And it's something people talk about. People drink a lot of Fernet there. I was also friends with a lot of people in the restaurant service industry besides bartenders. Those people get out of work is in the kitchen. They get out at 10, it's 10:30, 11, and they got 3 hours to get wasted. And so being a pro skateboarder, I could go out with my friends who were skaters and drink, and also go out with my bartender friends and see a little bit of music, you know, a mixture of just full on San Francisco nightlife. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
But there were a few times I woke up and just thought, like, what would the 15-year-old Brian think of last night, you know? And I called a friend of mine who was in AA, Lindsay Burns, who worked at Thrasher for many years, great friend of mine, like, hey, I want to go to a meeting with you. So there were definitely some moments in those periods. Like, I lived in San Francisco for 13 years. So during those times, I had some moments where I checked myself or pondered, like, what is my intake? This is not healthy. But again, I kept skating, and I would get a new interview and finish something in a video and look great, because I guess I had that balance. I loved skating so much, I didn't want to ruin it. And I also never had a problem with any opiates. You know, I never like ended up where, and that can be a big, enormous shift, obviously, right? Because now you have this major addiction thing that you can no longer skate. that well, and it starts messing with your legs, you know? So again, I think being sort of built for it too, with the alcoholism in my family and the strong, you know, Scandinavian background. I mean, I'm a pretty strong guy, you know? And, but yeah, I did it when I realized that I really wanted to stop. I was about to be 42. Wait, what am I saying? I was about to be 45 years old, right? I'm 47 now. And so it was before my 45th birthday. I was really puffy from drinking. And I didn't have a pain necessarily where your liver or kidneys might be, but I thought about all the years of damage I had done to this one body, you know? And yeah, it wasn't easy, but that was the moment. It was May 23rd where I kind of made a promise to myself, like, I'm going to get this stuff out of this body. I'm going to no longer be addicted, because I was addicted. So that's what happened. I became addicted physically to alcohol. Nothing else really. Luckily, no drug addiction. It was just alcohol. I had to drink in the middle of the night when I got up to take a pee and stuff like this. So,
well, listen, don't downplay that. Like that. I think we talked about this in Miami. It's like alcohol is the alcohol and benzos are the one thing that could kill you from a detox. You know, when I detoxed, because I was, you know, I was an opiate addict for many years, and when you're coming off opiates, you feel like you're going to die. But the alcohol and the benzos, those are the ones that could actually kill you, you know. And I listened to your interview on the Living Proof podcast, which shout out to them. Living Proof podcast is amazing. Those kids get some great interviews. I'm big fan of that one. And you were on that podcast talking about your levels, like that you when you were trying to wean off alcohol, like you seem to be a guy who's pretty in touch with your physical self, you know, and you kind of knew, like, I'm going to wean myself off alcohol, because you didn't go the route of going to a detox or going to a rehab. You wanted to do it yourself, and you did it, which is, I'm sure it's not recommended medically, but it is commendable, man, to be able to do that, and to know your body that well. You know, anybody who wants to hear the full story can go to that podcast. I know you just talked about that on there, but you essentially were saying that you knew how much you needed to not go into having the shakes, or that you could get through the day. And you managed to set a time for yourself to say, all right, so this is when you set an absolute date, right? To be like, this is the day I'm going to stop drinking, or was it?
It wasn't. No, actually, I just knew I was getting close to it being possible.
Okay.
And, so I got down to about like 2 or 3 drinks a day. And then I just watered that down. And I said to my husband, who I was really honest to about everything, and a few of my close friends. So I was like, yeah, I think I can do it this morning. Cause maybe in the days before I had gone like, all right, I'm going to go like, you know, 12, or I'm going to go 24 hours with just one drink. And that's it to sip on, you know, and then I'll wait another 24 hours and see how my body is. And so I was probably as safely as I could testing it with a drink right near me, you know, and then I could feel it. I could feel the sweating change and stuff like that. Yeah. So that day, May 23rd, was like, okay, I'm ready.
And was there any, like, as they call it in Alcoholics Anonymous, the white knuckling? Was it after that? Was it stressful? Was there any time?
I white knuckled on my birthday, June 12th. So do the math. That's like, you know, 19 days later. And I might have told this story already. I'll tell it quick, but I was with my husband. It was cloudy, and I thought, I want to have a good birthday. And it was in the pandemic. Still, some people were wearing masks. Some people weren't. Some people were scared. Some people didn't care. And there's all this emotion. Again, me being all sensitive to people around me. And that's another thing, being really empathetic and really aware and sensitive. I always like to have that. I call it the like blanket of like 4 glasses of wine. Just felt like I had this safety blanket around me, and I didn't feel everyone's pain. That's just another aspect of my personality.
Right.
But going back, white knuckling on my birthday, we went to dinner. We were on Fire Island. a nice place that we go a lot. And I said before dinner, I might have to have a glass of wine. And my husband, sweet, was trying to be supportive, not sure how to handle this. And then I got a big bottle of sparkling water. And I just said, let's not drink. And let's go back to the hotel, please, after this and watch TV. And so he like, of course, yeah, wonderful man, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the white knuckling moment. It was on my birthday, not because I wanted to get wasted and escape, but I would have been right back in. That's
right.
my pattern. I would have had a glass of wine at dinner, maybe two, to just feel happier and calm in this crazy world.
And it would have worked. And it probably would have worked. It would have felt great. And then you would have maybe gone back into that cycle to be like, well, I could probably handle it now, which is, you know, I think bring a lot of people down or keep a lot of people in.
I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I could guess what would happen, a variety of things. I probably would have felt a little crummy the next day, like a little mad at myself. And I probably would have, I'm not saying I wouldn't be right here, but I would have had to try to stop again.
Right.
After those 19 days I had under my belt, under my hat. Like, I would have been like, damn it. How do I do this? Well, there's a thing on Friday night, it's somebody's art show, so I might as well drink until that thing's, then you start doing that whole maze.
Yeah.
I'll call it a maze,
The telling yourself, man,
this will be a better time and I'll visit my mom. I didn't care that my mom smelled alcohol necessarily, blah, blah, blah. But you'd rehearse the next week in front of you and wonder, okay, dinner here. We're going to have 4 drinks there. Start doing the math.
Yeah.
As a lot of people who have lived with this can relate to.
So, yeah. And that's the thing, man, being able to relate to it at any level, that's what I love about people who have come out from this thing. It's like, my addiction and your alcoholism or whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing. But,
I'll say addiction and alcoholism.
Yeah.
So cool with that.
2 completely different things, but what we have in common is that feeling, like that I want to stop this thing and I don't know how. So my using, I wasn't going on trips. I wasn't doing anything like that. I was stuck in, and my addiction had come down to where I was pretty much either my mom would let me come to her place if I was, said that I was detoxing, or I was, scheming to get drugs and pretty much living in, spending most of my time in like public bathrooms, like crack and heroin. Like that was my thing. So it was easy for me on the opposite end to be like, I don't have anything. Like, why am I going to stop doing this? Like I went to rehab 20 times. So
wow.
19 times I went to a different place. 1 time I went to Recovery Unplugged, and that's where I ultimately got clean. Coming up on June 7th, I'll have 8 years, which is for me 60 days. 1 day was incredible. 60 days. Yeah. This time after I'd say 60 days is the longest I've ever had clean in my entire life. I got clean at 42, and I had been in and out of treatment for 7 years. And I would go to treatment every single time with, the hope in mind, like, this is going to be different. I'm not going to go back out to using. I want to change my life. I want to be able to do stuff, and I had nothing. And every time I would get out of treatment, it would be like, let me do one more.
Wow.
And then I'll get back on. And that one more lasted me 7 years, man. So it was like, it was the opposite end that I didn't have anything. Like when I went to treatment the last time, I had like $10 to my name. I was lucky enough to the halfway house I was living in, like the guy who moved out right before I moved in left like a bunch of pasta in there. So like I could eat like that. That's where I was, man. I had absolutely nothing. But then once I started doing some work on myself and realizing like, okay, so I'm 42. I'm the oldest guy here by like 20 years. I have to do something different this time. So I fucking hit the ground running. I really just started focusing on who I wanted to be, right? And I stopped giving myself the excuse of I'm just a fuck up who can't get things right. Like, let me give myself just, because I wasn't convinced it was going to work this time. It wasn't like I had some like, God spoke to me and there was a shaft of light that came through and I transcended everything and I knew things were going to be okay. It was like a lot. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of,
You had to tell yourself. I mean,
yeah. And, luckily I had the same sponsor for a few years before I got clean, because he would take meetings into the detox that I went to 19 times. So he would see me all the time and be like, you should come to a meeting outside, So this guy knew that I was struggling, that there was some little part of me that I would at least want to go to detox every now and then, even if it was just to clean myself out or whatever. So this is a guy who I knew had no other intentions other than to help somebody else get what he got, because he was a trauma nurse and he got busted stealing pills from the people in that he was caring for. He was like shooting up in the bathroom. I guess a trauma case came in. He came out with the needle sticking out of his leg and started to resuscitate him, and he got busted. So, I mean, this is a guy who's, almost lost everything and like would tell me these stories. And I was like, so you used like I used. And that was important to me. Like, this guy, no consequences whatsoever. Like, nothing could keep this guy clean. And then, something changed in his life. So I believed this man, and with like all my heart and soul. Like, I believed all he cared about was to help get me clean. Like, him and my mom used to talk, and their biggest wish for me, and this was, I would say, 8 months before I got clean, was that I would be locked up for a long time. Like, that was their dream. Like, they couldn't imagine anything better for me, Yeah. So once I started putting these little things together, like I got my driver's license, I got a bank account, I got things like that. Like, I honestly felt like this pride that I never had before. It's like, okay, so I am capable of doing this stuff. I'm not just a fuck up. I'm somebody who did fuck up a lot of things, but I'm capable of putting some things together. And then I went to a technical college for film and like television and film production, because Spike Jonze has always been one of my biggest heroes. And the beginning of Mouse, that little clip with Rick Howard in the mouse suit and them on the scooter, like that. When I first saw that, I was like, back in the day, I was like, man, I would love to do stuff like that, like make music videos and all them. So Spike Jonze was probably my biggest inspiration. So I went back to school and just started making these little videos and stuff like that. And then, I started working at Recovery Unplugged, where I got clean as a tech. I was going to school while I was teching, and I did a little documentary, and I asked the owners if they'd be in it. They didn't know who I was. I was just a former client and then worked there. So I like knocked on their door. I was like, hey man, will you guys be in, like, I work for you. I came through as a client. Would you guys be in this documentary that I'm going to do for school? And they're like, yeah, sure. Cause I knew they'd watch it if they were in it, and they saw it and they were like, holy shit, this is really good. Once you're done with school, we're going to give you a job like doing all of our videos and stuff. So it's like these little things just added up, and it was crazy. So our mutual friend, Joel Meinholz, like him and I used to party together a lot back in the day in the Miami nightclub scene. And then I went on to work in the more seedy nightclubs while he was doing the cooler, artsier stuff. I was working in the like you were talking about, the when the chefs and the restaurant workers would get out of work, they'd go party. I was going to the places where like the strippers and the drug dealers would go to and party, and just 24-hour liquor licenses in downtown Miami. And that was a place that really, it was a good place for a good breeding ground for my addiction to really take off.
Yeah, there's no time when you say 24-hour liquor license. So I'm imagining real quick, I'm just picturing all of those. You start living in an environment where there's almost no time existing, except for the impact of like what time the people show up to really spend money on the girls for strip club environment. Wow. I'm just picturing like what you went into. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like when the sun would come up, they would move the party to the rooftop, and it was like a rooftop party, and it's broad daylight, and it's just when you would see what people actually looked like outside of like the nightclub environment, you'd bring them up. You're just like, holy shit, I hope I don't look that bad. And I know I did.
Yeah.
Like just complete zombies.
Yeah.
It was,
You gotta, yeah. All right, I'm gonna wash my face and then we can go up to the roof.
yeah, exactly. Oh man, it was yeah, that was a crazy time. And then I would drive home and I would have all sorts of just drugs on me, guns on me, and like driving home when like school buses are like on the road, you know, and just so lucky that I never hurt anybody else or anything like that, or ended up locked up. It was just, it's such a blur too. It almost, when I think back on it, it almost feels like a movie that I had seen, you know. It's like hard to believe that I lived that life at all.
Can I say something
Please?
real quick?
Yeah.
I remember one time being hungover driving through the Castro in San Francisco I might have been like going to see my sister for Thanksgiving, but it wasn't like a crazy drug evening or anything necessarily. It was just massive hangover, right?
Yeah.
Not that we're having a pissing contest with, you know, where we've been in our lives, but this is related to seeing the school buses and stuff. But I remember stopping at a red light and on Market Street and just seeing two joggers run in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought like, I had also recently seen two men run through that same crosswalk about to go out and party for the night at 10 p.m. So I remember seeing those two different pods of two people.
Right.
And I just thought like, I much more want to be able to wake up and like go walk around or jogging. I'm not a jogger, but you know, because I'd been to so many nightlife parties and crazy fun events and all this stuff, I thought to myself, where those two guys are going to party all night, I'm lucky enough to have been there, done that. It was like a note taken, I guess. You know, it was 2 different days of my life that I saw 2 different people, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just remembered like it's incredible. It's amazing like what you can just be stopped and look up once in a while and have something like that pass you by and make you weigh things out. I don't know.
Those little moments too, you know, and it's amazing that you always remember them and it's always so visual. Cause I guess,
even though I didn't tell that story perfectly, I spit it out. Right. It's like, yeah, I saw 2 different vibrations, really.
Right. And you were you were living more the party one, but you were more attracted to these people that were taking care of themselves. It seemed like they were, you know, doing something a little bit healthier. And, you know, I think that's the difference between like an alcoholic and somebody who just enjoys drinking. Because, I mean, let's face it. Drinking is enjoyable to most people, and most people can handle it and get that blanket feeling and have 4 glasses of wine and then not touch it again for a couple of months. Where me is once I had that little blanket feeling, it was like, okay, what else can I get to keep this feeling going for the next couple years, you know, and just keep it going. It was never like, there was never a point where I enjoyed it enough to say like, this is perfect, I'm going to stop now. It was always just like more.
Wow.
So who are the people that inspire you today? Who in your life inspires you the most?
Wow. It's wild, honestly. I'm learning guitar and I watch a lot of I watch so many videos and interviews with people that are still alive, that are musicians. You know, I really have this thing for Eddie Van Halen, because I think he was a really sweet guy. And I saw how cigarettes and alcohol and drugs, like ended up for him, you know. I see. So, you know, I really love like being social, and I'm a great host. I like to think I love to cook for people. I like everybody to have music that makes them comfortable, a drink in their hand, whether it's alcohol or not. So anyway, it's not that I look up to him. I've been learning so much from a lot of these people that lived a similar life as I did. And to see how that lifestyle changed them. It's really unfortunate, you know, for Eddie. Like, I banged my teeth up skateboarding, but you know, he had cancer and got a part of his tongue looked at, and I think he said some, you know, some really frustrated things to people while he was drunk and high and stuff over the years. He, again, real sweetheart. But so I don't know. Right now, I've just been finding a lot of comfort in seeing people's stories. Again, it's unfortunate that Eddie Van Halen suffered from the cancer, and but I saw him. You know, eventually he quit drinking. You know, his brother Alex quit before him,
Right.
and like just hearing these stories of people like that is it's really inspiring to me, because I've skateboarding and the drinking I did, I call that drinking is like the first half of my life, right? And so I feel really alive and ready to keep creating and making things. So I've been finding it really interesting to listen to people's stories about how they got off drugs and alcohol while being creative people.
Yeah.
And another a guy who was right in the middle of his career was Stevie Ray Vaughan. He was drinking, and I think putting cocaine in his drink that was on stage, so he didn't probably have to snort it, and smoking cigarettes. And you and I might have talked about this when we talked in Miami. I can't remember, but hearing his revelation one morning, I think he was on tour in Germany, and he woke up so paranoid and was paranoid of the bassist in the band and all this stuff. And he went to someone and was like, I need help. And he went into a treatment center, and maybe even in England.
Right.
But so it's people like that I can relate to, I guess. I think you asked that I look up to, but that's kind of my response is like, it's been really helpful to hear interviews or hear the other people recall those folks on tour, and to hear the stories of people that, ended up stopping all the drugs and alcohol. People like John Frusciante,
Right.
You know, he lost a bunch of his teeth. He was speedballing. You know, I listened to his interview with Rick Rubin. He never has glorified those years. In fact, he talks more about music and stuff than his recovery. But when he does talk about what he went through and where he was at with his addictions, I guess you could call them, it's really helpful to hear people that have made it through that stuff.
It is, especially, and I know we had talked about the program that I had launched through Recovery Unplugged for the touring musicians, and my goal is to bring it to not just musicians, but I'd love to see how I could help the skate community, just because, you know, now that Recovery Unplugged is doing both mental health along with the addiction treatment, I just think there's so many people that, you know, that I'd like to help, especially in the community. That means, you know, I grew up in the music industry with my parents, but the skateboarding community is the one that I most closely relate to. It's just where my heart and soul is, where most of my friendships were forged. And, you know, it would, if I could do anything to support and help the skateboard community at all, you know, that would be an amazing thing that I would feel super accomplished, even if I could just help a couple of people get into treatment, one person get into treatment, or one person sees this and thinks like, oh, you know, maybe I could do something to better my life, no matter what it is. Like that's my goal.
Great.
So I have a Bob Shirt moment here. For those who don't know, Bob Shirt is a skateboarding, I don't know, it's a thing where they interview people, but they show them a lot of product and get their the person's opinion on it. So I'm
just plugging in my charger, as I mentioned that I'm not using my laptop, I'm using my phone. So okay, here we go, I'm back. Okay, so Bob's shirt. Oh wow, 4-star. You're showing a shirt from a tour I went on in Japan with a clothing company called 4-star. And the tour was called Super Champion Fun Zone. So that's the shirt you have. Wow. Is that right?
Yeah. That is that is still probably like my deep cut favorite skate video of all time. I still watch it cause I get up super early to go skate when I do on the weekends. And I would say 4 out of 5 times on the weekend, I just put that video on, and it always hypes me up to go skating still. Like, and it's got to be 20 something years old at this point, but that time period, especially when there's a part where the entire team is late to showing up to a demo, and Brian's there pretty much running a whole demo, skating by himself in Japan and just absolutely killing it. What was do you have any stories from that tour?
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, Guy Mariano, a pro skater who I looked up to, is now my contemporary at this point of this tour. He had just gotten done with the recovery, or not gotten done with the treatment,
Right.
sorry, and was starting his recovery. Excuse me. And so that was really cool to get to meet him and spend time in a van like that. But yeah, I remember that tour as a skateboarder. Japan is a country when you're, and musicians might get this too, but skating is obviously a little different. You're out there in this like empty hockey rink or in a mall. There's an impromptu setup, so you get a lot of surprise demos, surprise autograph signings, because once you're there, I mean, people are happy you're there, so they try to really squeeze in as much little autograph signings. But about that tour, I just remember being happy that PJ Ladd is another pro skater that was really fun to watch skate. And I remember feeling like really happy to be on a tour with such a cool team, like of awesome skateboarders that all had really great different styles, and the whole world, a lot of people, was their favorite skate, your skater's favorite skater, however you say that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I just remember Mark Gonzalez. Mark and I have always kind of gotten along just great. And Mark's, Mark lives with like, kind of like, I don't know what to label him as, but his personality is can be really tricky for him. Yeah. Yeah. So, I remember that tour, Mark was having some difficulties, being frustrated and stuff. And that's, and I remember just trying to help him along. So I have cool all over the place memories of that tour. Just, I think I was regular drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't getting in my way per se. And so are my friends, there's definitely a late night lifestyle, and people get really, really, really pickled that night in Tokyo, all kinds of people. So if we're talking about that side of it too,
it just seemed like a
plenty of that. But again, that was part of the time where I'm sure I got good rip roaring drunk. But hey, you just mentioned the demo,
Yeah,
so
pulling it together.
Yeah, yep. But Mariano was sharing with me how his difficulties, so I was trying to not turn it up, be too drunk around him and stuff. So
that's
wonderful tour.
So that's when he ultimately first, when he got recovery, right before his the big Lakai comeback and everything. That was when he was building up to that.
Yeah, he had a couple extra pounds on him too, after being in treatment, and just right away we were sat next to each other in a van. There were two vans, so that's why it happened. Where we had like a 4-hour drive, and Guy and I just got to talking,
Absolute legend.
And maybe, I had never been around him since I had been more out to my friends and people I was working with and skating. So,
man, so you were on tour with, what was it, 2/5 of Blind Video Days? Damn, that's incredible. I would have fanned out on that. That's awesome. So I have a viewer question here. My friend Dylan Jones, he works at No Comply Skate Shop. He had a question for you. So it says, looking back, the shoes may have been a little crazy, but based off current shoes, Nyjah models, etc., do you ever think Xavier may have been light years ahead of its time?
Yes, because of Steve McDonald. He was a footwear designer. Pardon me, Steve, for not being in touch. Hope you're still with us. This guy worked on some early Jordan shoes, and Xavier was its own company. It just had a licensing agreement with Nike Technology, so we were able to use Nike technology, everything. But yeah, it was started by somebody, and again, it's its own thing. So they hired Steve McDonald. So those first designs were mostly him. Pardon me, it's been so many years. One of the other designers that came in after my first few meetings.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do think that they would do good. Yeah, because Steve had an incredible eye and incredible experience as a footwear designer. So, shout out to Steve McDonald. He incorporated the airbags in cool ways, I thought. Yeah, with a skateboard shoe aesthetic, silhouette, whatever word you want to use. So I think Xavier would probably still,
light years ahead of the time. Agreed upon.
Oh yeah, agreed. Yes.
All right.
Sorry.
So here's the part of the show which we call rapid fire question.
Hey, thanks, Dylan. Sorry to talk over you, Jason.
No,
thanks.
good.
Real quick, not trying to overly plug No Comply, but what a cool deal to be able to walk outside, go in the parking garage, and have a crow's nest view of the skate park. An incredible layout.
Yeah.
I hope that coffee shop's doing good.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to Idlewild Coffee.
Yeah.
Best coffee in Austin. If you're in Austin, go check it out. Idlewild Coffee. Great dudes, great coffee. And you could go get a coffee, skate down to House Park right around the corner there. It's an amazing setup. That was one of the things that, like, when I first moved to Austin, it was just like it was so comforting to be able to, connect with new friends and just become part of a whole new scene, and very welcoming here, and I love it. So hopefully you could come out soon. I know you were saying your sister lives out here, so hope you could come out soon.
I love being in Austin.
Yeah, man. Let me know next time you'll come out.
I will.
We'll definitely hit it up. But all right, ready for rapid fire question?
This is the part I interrupted you.
No, that's okay, man. I enjoy the back and forth. Please, this is the best part of it. Not the rapid fire question, the back and forth part. Okay.
It's rapid fire question time.
Have you ever had a supernatural experience? UFO, Bigfoot, ghosts?
A ghost.
A ghost? What happened?
I think so. After my dad passed away, 2 nights later, we were in the house that most of us grew up in, that I grew up in. And yeah, the back doorknob twisted and turned, and the screen door was closed. My sister and I looked at each other, watched the doorknob spin and twist, and I stood up and ran to the door, and the screen door was closed. So it seemed kind of impossible.
And it was a shared experience too.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that was really interesting. I don't know what that was, if it was our dad or what, but
did you feel safe, or did you feel
that was a pretty wild thing?
Did you feel safe, or did you feel threatened?
I was a little freaked out, and I thought maybe it was one of my siblings. Am I shouting? I thought maybe one of our siblings didn't want to wake up my mother. Bless her, she's sleeping after losing her husband.
Right.
So I thought, one of my siblings came home, and they thought maybe. So that's why I jumped, tiptoed, but was still a little freaked out. And then, I could see the screen door closed. Therefore, impossible to twist that doorknob. I don't know. Can't explain it.
All right. So what is your, right now, currently, or all time, your song to get you pumped up?
What? To get me pumped up? Let's see.
You're not feeling it. You need to go out. You're getting ready to go skate. Whatever it is, something that just gives you a little extra boost.
I don't know. I'll just go with DOA, Dead or Alive by Van Halen. I don't know.
That's a good one. Have you always been a big Van Halen fan?
Yeah, it was one of my first cassette tapes.
Oh, okay, cool. So you're a lifer.
Yeah, it's legitimate that Van Halen 1 cassette, I had it. Of course, I'm 8 or 9, don't know how awesome this thing is, and so I listened to it probably over and over so it's just burned in there.
Nice. So I usually have a co-host, Joseph, who's wasn't able to come today because he was busy, but this is his favorite question. So this is a question from Joseph. Ben and Jerry's approaches Brian Anderson, BA, says, you get a signature ice cream. What's in it and what do you call it?
Okay. I'm gonna say chocolate and pretzels, but that's a really hard question.
There's a lot of options.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about like bean, and like recently I had a ice cream that was made with tahini in Asbury Park, and it was like, I forget what the flavor was. So man, I can't even, that would take me, this is serious.
Yeah, we asked the hard-hitting questions here.
I know, this is like not like the Stephen Colbert when you're known to Stephen Colbert, you know. Those are easy, man. All right, what would I call? What's the name of the Steely Dan record with pretzel in it? Pretzel Logic.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good one. Okay, so chocolate and pretzel. That's a good one. I love Steely Dan.
And on the outside there's a cell phone. It looks like a Rubik's Cube because my whole life is trying to constantly I don't know, man. I would have to brainstorm with myself, and this takes a while.
That's a good one.
I don't have any hot, like, rhyming 2 words that work. Dang.
That's good though.
Let's see. How about
Super Champion Fudge Zone?
There you go. Yeah, it would have notes of Japanese food.
There you go.
So you could have, it's a green tea. There we go.
All right. So I get a cut then if this is...
Wait, what is the name again?
Super Champion Fudge Zone.
Okay. Yeah, but you could also, it needs a BA in there or something.
It does. Well, maybe everybody who was on the tour can get their own signature one. So
that's expensive.
That is. Well, Ben and Jerry's must we're talking Ben and Jerry's money here. These aren't, we're not dealing with amateurs.
I know. I'm wearing the Grateful Dead shirt, not the Ben and Jerry's dunk.
Oh yeah, there we go. So what was so that'll be the next rapid fire question. What is your favorite of your skate shoes? What is your best colorway?
Of the Project BA?
Yeah.
I like the one that's all black that had reflective. It was an R&R version with a thinner tongue and everything and thinner collar.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, randomly I'll go ahead and say this all black one with a reflective swoosh. And it had like hints of orange in the laces. They're reminiscent of a climbing belt. So yeah, that's my favorite one.
You had the camo ones, right, with the orange laces?
Oh yeah, I did a dunk high that was camo.
That was
with an orange swoosh, and then the inside of the flap for the ears was long underwear material.
All right. Is there this one might be a little controversial. Is there any skate trick you could go the rest of your life without seeing anybody do ever again?
A gay twist. No, I'm just kidding. You said controversial. No, there's a trick that is you go out backwards and you do a 360, and people used to call it GAY twist.
Yeah.
But I wasn't trying to be cheaply funny there. Is there a trick that I could go the rest of my life without seeing? You're going to make somebody uncomfortable that loves doing that trick.
It is.
But let's see.
Like a big tray flip tail grab, but no offense to Mako Urabe here.
How about I can't be bothered to do this 360 flip.
The super cash,
I don't
fake
think people do
steez.
those as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think people do them as much. But yeah, that one you're like, maybe, there's a bird fluttering in my yard. I hope it's all right. I don't think people do that as much anymore. And people,
that's not controversial either, because obviously these people can do it properly. Yeah. So they, it's not like you're just, but yeah, I agree. Like, we understand that you could do it without effort, whatever. But you don't have, the fake steez thing. I think I'm seeing much less of, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. If you're a kid and you want to show off a little bit of steez, that's fine. But there's you don't have to labor it so much. Not like Ben Schroeder, who's out there just crushing it and still kind of I mean, I've seen some recent footage. Oh, before I get to, this is the part where we usually ask you to wrap it up. But there was one question that I wanted to ask to go back to. When you had you did your coming out video on Vice, when you officially publicly came out, right? And this was before you got sober?
Yeah.
So you had this one, and you're used to being in the skateboard limelight, which is the limelight, but you could still go to the grocery store and kind of, be under the radar and not get recognized. But when you publicly came out, it seemed like you were getting a lot of press, you were getting a lot of interviews, you were all over the place, right? Was that jarring for you to be kind of thrusted into a little bit more of a public eye?
No, no. I've always said I don't crave fame, and I think that I'm cut. Like I said, I could be this sort of with my body and my energy. So I think I'm cut out to be this sort of entertainer too.
Yeah.
Again, it's not like, oh, look at me. I don't have to be the lead singer. I don't have to. Not that the lead singer is attention getter. That's its own awesome part of the band to be able to do that. But no, I didn't mind at all. I was drinking, and yeah, again, it doesn't like fire up my ego. It was a part of like my parents gave birth to me. I happen to be gay, and I tell that to a camera, and it helps me and other people. Of course, that results in people wanting to talk about it. And
Right.
Because of skating, yes, I was primed for that. I was used to talking to cameras and being comfortable in environments of people wanting to have you in part of a panel and stuff. So it was kind of, I've always sort of felt comfortable.
That's refreshing to hear. That really is, because I think most people would either try to like play this humble thing, like, oh, I don't, it was weird, but then the more I think about it, you're the guy who ran a demo in Japan all by himself before the rest of the team showed up. You're used to kind of being there on the spot and able to perform under pressure. So that makes sense.
And in being a pro skater, you have to be able to talk to kids at a skate park. Versus if you're a professional athlete, nobody's allowed on the court and can just walk up to you and talk to you. So if you stay in it and you learn to be comfortable with that without snapping on people of all ages, parents nowadays too. I want my kid in the Olympics. How?
Right.
So not to be negative, but in even in the 90s, there's people trying to be like, can our son or daughter go on tour with you? It was mostly son then.
Right.
But yeah, no, I was used to that. Sorry, I ran with that one.
No, that's great. Now, and you know what I really appreciated about when we first met was there was a skate demo going on inside the park, and you were just a skate rat skating the flat ground out in front of the skate park because you liked the ground, you liked like the blacktop. And I just remember you saying that, and I was like, dude, this guy just fucking loves skateboarding. Like,
well, also I had to warm up. So I grew up skating behind a grocery store and in the little ditch and all this stuff. So I didn't grow up back and forth skate park.
Right.
I can hang. I can get into that ocean, that I can go swimming with everybody and jump in that pool. But I like to like get acquainted with my legs, and I'm 47.
Yeah.
I'm 6'4", and so I was warming up out in the street. It's perfect. I grew up skating in parking lots, man. That's where I feel so, and I have all this space around me. It's great. And then I'm ready to go be in front of the skate park and land tricks or fall in front of people. I like to warm up out in the parking lot, man. Everybody's staring at you once you get in the park. You want to feel comfortable.
And that was such a cool event with just these little kids, like 10-year-old kids, just totally ripping, and it was a lot of fun. And let me tell you, that day too, it was one of those, we call them spiritual awakenings or whatever kind of spiritual experience that I had one that day, because driving down there, I got to pass a lot of the places that I was using in when, I couldn't put 50 cents together to like to do whatever when I was nickel and diming to do whatever. Like I drove past the bathroom that I used to stay in, like when I had no place to go. And then later that day, you know, I get to see Joel, my old friend. I meet you. We're hanging out in front of the skate park, and then Harmony Korine walks up, and it was just like, I was like, man, like just a few years ago, like I was on the other side of these tracks, like just totally hopeless and had nothing to look forward to in life. And then like moments like that where I'm just reminded, like, man, like I'm doing okay, and I get to keep on doing these things, which was, and I'm glad that, you know, we got to connect and I get to share that with you. So I'm grateful that we met and that you got to take the time and come and be here with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's my pleasure. I appreciate it.
So any closing words you have for anybody out there who might feel like they're in a spot that they might not be able to get out of, or whatever you want to say? This is the time to, the floor is yours.
Take a walk if you're able to. That's incredible what that can do. If you're in the place that you're staying or living and just kind of going in circles in your mind or physically, actually pacing, you know, not everybody has that opportunity, but a lot of us do. It's incredible what a walk can do. You know, some people may be visually impaired or not able to walk, but and for those people also, and for everyone, I like to say how much writing has helped me in the last couple of years. It's pretty incredible. I say this all the time now, but it's been so helpful to write letters and that are never sent. You know, it's an old-fashioned thing. I know a lot of people do it with emails even, and they're about to tell somebody off. That's a different story. But yeah, I guess would like to reiterate how incredible just writing down some of your feelings and frustrations can be, you know, and then you get them out and they're no longer swirling in your mind, in your heart, you know, both. And you'd be surprised the next morning if you just give it a break and tell yourself, you know, it can be a lot of things. Oftentimes you want to, you know, vent and freak out on somebody. And that's a major help. Instead of picking up the phone, I know it's very easy. I know we all have them. I look at the news a few times a day. But yeah, I would just say in closing, like, remember to, if you can't write, you know, try and meditate and think through some things and put them in different boxes, compartmentalize them, and try to take things category at a time if you're going in circles. So, and you know that you can hopefully get some kind of rest tonight and go another day without using, and how good you're going to feel, or how much better you're going to feel the next morning. You know, even if you can't sleep, just try and get some kind of rest, and know that, you know, there's people out there that want to help you and help you get better, because there's plenty of people out there who love you.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So like we always say here at Talksicology, wrap it up. There's 1,000 ways in, 1,000 ways out, and we hope you find yours.